it. Well, looks like this chart is promising for a little bit longer entries and exits with time. So yeah, this chart on the futures right now it's looking like overbought conditions, and it is rightfully so coming down. We would want to see a mean reversion, and let's see how it reacts at the mean. 4132 area, and right now a new candle just opened up. So I think it should still come back into the mean right about here, and then probably we want to see it 4130 and again 4128. Downside remains that 4100. 4100 has been acting as a pretty decent support so long, and I think let's go here on the lower time frame. I don't know why this chart is resetting. All right, let's go here. Yeah. So this is a 1 hour chart, got overbought, and the expectation is still, for it to come back down and probably test this 4132 to 4130 area, and we'll see a bounce, a definite bounce here. And after that, likely scenario is there is a lot of support here. 4116. So if it breaches this 4130, then we have this 4125, then probably 4116. If it comes back down to 4116, it gets a little hairy here. But if it clears this number here, likely scenario, it's going to go down into that 4100 on ES. So that's the downside, about 37 points from where we are. I think that is not going to happen. Very likely it's going to bounce off of this line here if it comes down all the way down to this 200 moving average on the hour. Looks like it, but if it does come back down and breaches this 4117 to 4115 area, then we'll start to look for that 4100. Right. That's the downside, and that's a defined downside for now, right? We've been bouncing off of that number for quite some time, I think 3 days in a row. And if it does it today, oh, that's 4 times in a row. To the upside, hourly mean reversion 4139, that cleared just about here, 4142. That clears just about here, 4149 to 4150 area. So this should be it to the upside, or maybe let's say if it clears this half trend, then probably the third standard deviation between 4152 to 4155. That's right. So that's the number that we want to be watching to the upside. So give or take about 13 points to the upside. So if we are planning, let's say if we are putting up till 4155 area, so that would be give or take about 20 points to the upside. Maybe, yeah, 20 points to the upside, then probably we're looking at 30 points or 35 points to the downside. That's the range. I don't think it's going to cross that range. And actually, yeah, I don't think it's going to cross that range either to upside or downside. So probably we're looking at about zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.6 for the day, unless and until this guy, where is that guy? This guy, Apple. So this thing is almost there, almost crossing over. And yesterday, even though with that rally, it wasn't able to hit all this number, 163. But I think this is starting to cross to a downside. And if you have a crossover here to the downside, I think it will pull down, the market with it. What? No, no, I shouldn't be saying that. So one thing is different. One thing is different, and even though we see this happening with the Apple and Microsoft both, one thing is different. Yesterday we saw a huge divergence between tech, Nasdaq, and small caps. Right, the gap did not close as much as we wanted it to close, and I was thinking that small caps need to come lower rather than tech moving higher. However, that the small caps did not come back all that much lower, but Nasdaq moved higher. That was interesting to watch, and I think even though that is happening, we still are watching this crossover here, right? If this crosses to the downside, likely scenario is that market will try to uh, push to the downside. I'm thinking this number should get tested. Mean reversion, which the mean is sitting about 159.38 area as of now. or maybe down here at 159 on the Heikenashe. It's sitting at about 159 area. So I think Apple will come back down and test that number. If that breaches, very likely we're going to see Apple come back into this 157.70. And if Apple takes this route to the downside, likely scenario is that we will experience some weakness in SPX. Probably again, if Apple breaches the mean, very likely we will see SPX come back down, ES come back down into 41. And if Apple goes down into super trend here, about 157.60 to 157 area, then likely scenario, ES will be below 41, probably testing that 40.80. Yeah. Uh, and let's go here with Apple. This chart is not very conclusive. This is coming down, this is moving higher. So this chart is not really reliable. However, for the sake of getting a range, the mean on the hour is about 162.50 area, and that clears very likely is going to go hit this half trend, 162.70 area. Downside, this is about 161. However, I think the downside is still here, about 160.20. If that breaches, then probably we are looking at. I think it's gonna bounce here. I think it's gonna bounce here, right about here. And after the bounce, probably it's gonna bounce all the way up here till 160 to 60 area. And after that bounce, likely scenario is gonna come back down into 160 area, 160 right about here. I think it's gonna come back down into this area if it breaches about this area, 161.20 area. Then very likely it's gonna come back down into this area. I want to keep a watch on the hourly time frame, on the daily time frame for that push to the downside. I don't think 153 is in the cards today. Yeah, I definitely am not looking at 153 today. However, this is what I'm looking at. The 5. The 5 should get tested. If that 5 right about here, this 5, 159.70, 159.50 within this range, I think this is very doable for Apple today, and we want to see that get tested. If that breaches, very likely it's going to come back into the 8 on the week. And this is a chart that I'm looking at. So my direction is still to the downside. Yesterday again, I was thinking that in the overnight session it might push down. It did not happen. Asian markets were buoyant, and it seems like the credit crunch that, or rather solvency issues that we were expecting to multiply, that's not happening either. Right now, I think the market is trading on the fear of a recession, and I think the recession fears are valid as of now. But looking at the job market is still strong, right? The job market is still strong. We want to see Fed go with another 25 bips in May. I think it's on May 5th. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's in the first week of May. I think we will still want to see 25 bips from Fed. If more than 25 bips, likely the market will push to the downside. Even let's say Fed does 25 bips and the market moves lower. If market does move lower, I will buy that dip. I will buy that dip. I think very likely scenario is that that 25 today, perhaps today or rather tomorrow on the FOMC minutes. I think the Fed should have some sort of a language that they are looking to pause, or looking at probably taking or delaying the hike after May. Some sort of language there. So hopefully we see that language, and if we see that language there from tomorrow's minutes, I think the market will take it as end of an hiking cycle. Then likely scenario is that, and that's why you see this guy Bitcoin running. That's what I was watching here, and Bitcoin is is behaving, not predicting, but it is behaving as though Fed is going to pause. That's what this is suggesting, and if you're looking at the interest rates or treasuries here, this is behaving as though the Fed will not hike going forward after, or rather at least after this first half. Looks like this is telling us the Fed will not hike, very likely, or rather pause the hiking cycle, and this is telling the same exact thing. So I'm thinking that even if the market comes down, let's say during next FOMC, even after the earnings are a big caveat, and I think earnings, even if they are ratcheting down the expectations, I think it will be okay. I think the market will not see unless there is a meaningful downside or meaningful downgrade towards the outlook. I don't think market will see a new low this year. I think very likely we are even if the market moves lower. I think that 35 threshold. I think that's where it should be. That should be it for unless there is something going on in China and Taiwan space. I think barring that scenario, I think the market has seen its lows. Right, maybe some volatility here. It is hitting that third standard deviation, and it's all the way up here. So we will look for this thing to come down, probably take a breather. On the daily, this thing is still moving up, so we might see this thing come back down. That will be, I think, it will be an ephemeral push to the downside. Think it needs to calm down a bit, probably come back into second standard deviation and probably into the five as well. So give or take about 800 points, 1,000 points from where it is right now. And if this happens, likely scenario is that Nasdaq will take a breather as well. Here, it should have crossed to the downside. It was nicely going to the downside, but again, it is crossing to the upside. So I'm watching this thing carefully. It has squeezed here, and the squeeze has fired to the upside. Likely scenario, it needs to correct itself and probably come back into the second standard deviation and probably into the five. That's my understanding here. Let's get into oil. Oil bounce off of the five. Wanted to see it break below five, did not happen, and I'm still thinking that it'll come back down and test this five at some point in time. If the five breaches, then we are looking for the eight. But if it doesn't come back down and it bounces off the five, likely scenario is this number 8340. But before that, let's go here and let's check this chart. Not this one, oil. Right, so the upside is right here, 8260 area, downside is right here, about 7850 area. So this is the range for which Apple, I think oil will remain, and if it comes back to the downside, likely we'll see, market taking a breather, and if it moves upside, this is basically the barometer for global growth, and that's why we're watching this. Oil down, likely scenario. I think oil should come back down. The five on the week is sitting all the way down here. I think that it needs to catch up with the technicals. This was a pretty decent move in oil last week, and I think it should take a breather. Uh, yeah, but this week, tomorrow is again CPI, FOMC. After that, there's PPI. So market will be dominated by news. So we can't really predict which way it's going to go. But if CPI comes in line, likely we are looking at again what do you call inline numbers and probably inline moves. Not really plotting anything above 2% as of now. And if the number surprises, if the CPI surprises to the upside, probably we are looking at better than 2% move. If not, probably everything will be settled within 1 to 1.5%. At the max, if something exaggerates, then we are looking at a 2% move. Let's get into a little bit of Microsoft here. Microsoft in the same boat, just as Apple. Apple is already ready to cross to the downside. This hasn't crossed yet, but I'm thinking from with today's move, as the market opens, this will start to cross to the downside. And likely scenario, and that's the reason I'm short on futures. Maybe I should have traded NQ instead of trading ES. Yeah, NQ seems much easier correlating with Apple and Microsoft to the downside. So if NQ starts to move to the downside, likely scenario will see SPX also moving to the downside. So this thing I'm still watching. I want it to cross down just like this and test all the way here down to the zero line. Now, if it's going to happen or not, that's a different story, right? Because tomorrow is another news cycle, and day after tomorrow another news cycle. So whether it's going to happen within that news cycle or not, that's a separate story. But going by technicals, it should happen. But let's see how that works out. The next number here for it is 281. I'm thinking it should get tested here, and let's go here on this number, this chart. The five. This is what we are watching actually. This very likely is a bounce coming up here with the five on the week. And if that breaches, very likely it's going to go down here and test this 281 area. That breaches, very likely it'll come down into this 5 or 8 on the week, about 277 area. Unless it clears here, not going to plot this number. If it clears this 282 or rather the 5 on the week, then likely scenario 8 on the week. Let's go here, 1 hour chart. Oil is still bouncing. So if oil does this, there's no reason, likely to look for a downside. Right. So this thing is right now bouncing. I think after the market opens, likely scenario is it will come back down and test this number 283.40 to 283 area. This number will get tested. And again, the same thing, if it bounces, if it clears this line right here, then the 5, then the 8, and um, if it clears this line here, the 50 moving average, then I would assume there is decent strength for Microsoft, then very likely it's going to hit the mean here. 287.70, and if it does clear this number, 286.60 area, then let's start plotting the mean reversion. And if the mean clears, then likely scenario is 289. I don't think 289 is in cards for today, but let's see if it clears this 50 moving average on the hour. If it does, then we'll start to plot further upside into mean reversion. To the downside, still have a defined 283.40 immediate trade to 283. If it clears there, then let's start plotting, this number here, 281. Then likely scenario will start to plot this number here about, where is that? Yeah, 281. Then after that, 280.20. And if it does clear here, then let's start to plot the 8 on the week. Let's go a little bit into Tesla. Tesla yesterday was a clear shot here. 200 moving average, downside and bounce, took that trade. And my understanding was if it bounces here, it's going to go hit this number at 183. And if it clears here, yesterday we were saying that it's going to go here, then here, the same story, 5, 8. If that, very likely 188 is the upside for Tesla, 188, 189. That clears, then let's start to look for something else. But the downside here, if it starts to come back down, 183 is what you're looking at. That breaches again 176 to 175 area. Rather, once this is moving higher, so 176 area. Oh wow, it moved higher. Okay. So cool thing. 176, rather 177 to 176. That breaches, we are looking for a push down into 170. Probably this is a story for tomorrow. But for now, I think 177, I don't know if it's in the cards for today. But if to the downside, if it breaches this number, 183 area, again, it'll come back down to this number. Right. So to the upside, if it clears here, the 8, then you're looking at a 21. Should act as decent resistance here. If that clears, let's start, in real time. Then we'll start to project further upside. Let's go here. Bounce spot, cool thing. The 5 and 8 and the mean reversion. This should act as decent resistance, I think, for Tesla. If it does clear here, then we're looking at a push all the way up here at 190, 180 to 192 area. Basically, the 50 on the daily. That's what we're looking at. 5, the mean reversion 8, then that clears the 50. This should be it for Tesla today, if at all it moves up. And $5 6 move in Tesla is not a big deal. Why am I saying that? If it does move, why am I looking at a muted day? Simply because tomorrow is more news coming out, so very likely today will be a muted session. And however, in case if in case the institutions are expecting whatever by whatever means of calculation they have, if they're expecting whether a hotter than expected CPI, and likely scenario is they'll try to sell it off. So yeah, and that's what. Or if they're if their calculation is saying that it would be a lighter than CPI, likely then they'll probably buy it up. So that's the math there. What else we're looking at? Oil, we talked about this. Yesterday, I think we wanted to see K-Web. K-Web is mean reversion had to happen, right? We kind of knew that right about here, the mean reversion had to happen. Unfortunately for me, my I couldn't get I couldn't take the delivery here. It did not come down here all the way to the mean, so I couldn't take this at delivery. Had I taken this delivery, it would have been a nice push to the upside, but I didn't get that delivery. So still, the mean reversion is holding for now. I think if the mean breaches, you can expect it to come back down into this number, 2950, and to the upside, if it clears here, expect the 5 and 8 to act as decent resistance. That clears likely scenario 3054. However, Baba is what you want to be watching, and Baba has announced their own AI, and that's why you're seeing a bit of a bounce in Baba. I think this scenario should play out the way it's supposed to play out. Five, then should come back into this one standard deviation, 100, then very likely is going to come back into 9930. And I'm saying that because of the overbought conditions here. Likely scenario, again, a test of 8 and then the bounce. If the 8 breaches, then we are looking at a push all the way down here into 95.90. However, tomorrow's news cycle might dominate this week. Tomorrow, day after tomorrow's news cycle, CPI, FOMC, then PPI might dominate this week. But going forward, I think bank starts a report. That bank uh, bank reports, I think that outlook from the banks, that will matter a lot going forward, more than the tech earnings actually. If the banks say that they have adequate cash or adequate measures in place to take care of this not liquidity, solvency crisis, then likely scenario is that you will see market shrug off whatever is happening. Combine that with the end of hiking cycle, you're looking at further upside. And likely scenario is that April will end up green for the markets. Right now, it's about 0 to 0.1%, or rather 0.5%, somewhere between that range for the month of April. I think it will end up somewhere between 4 to 5% if the banks come in with good commentary about the solvency crisis. So I think the the government, or rather the government agencies, have actually backstopped that whole FDIC thing. So just about everybody is safe. So I don't know why would that solvency crisis go forward. Why would people want to take the money out? I don't think that's the case now. I think that was an episode from last month, starting I think March. I think that episode is done. I don't see any reason for people to be scared, or I'm not seeing people scared in the market, or to leave their money in the banks. So I think that is behind us. Next major thing to drop is probably you're looking at any real estate issues, right? Commercial real estate, especially the commercial real estate. I think the residential real estate is still in good condition. I think that will continue to be in good condition, given that most of the people did refinance their mortgage towards I think towards that 2.5, 2.6, whatever, 2.5 to 3 area. I think they will continue to live in those houses, and I don't think that is going to balloon into something contagious. But I think the what do you call this? Commercial real estate, that loan those loans are coming due. Those loans are coming due, and likely scenario is that that will have an effect. Again, I don't think that will have as much big of an effect as the 2008 contagion had. I don't think that. I think that will permeate through all the private equity firms related or closely related to that commercial real estate. But I don't think that is gonna spill into the other, or rather the regular financial institution. I think there are measures in place, but yeah, there will be an opportunity to short that. But besides that, I don't see anything big happening on the horizon. Any big any big issues that might affect the markets. Besides that China Taiwan issue, yeah, I'm still seeing upside in the markets actually. So let's go here with ESM. This is what I'm looking at. So ESM has been holding this, right? ESM has been holding this. The upside, this is what we're looking at, about 42.30 on ESM, so give or take about 42 on ES. Likely scenario, earnings come in good, we should have this, but not in a straight line. That clears very likely is going to go hit this 43. Why not in a straight line? Because of right? Because of this, you have a 5, you have a 8, then you have to deal with that. Likely scenario, we want to see a mean reversion. Mean reversion happened here. Mean is sitting about 40, 44. So we want to see this happen. Likely scenario is that Apple and Microsoft curling to the downside. Likely we'll see that happen. If not, then you're looking at the immediate upside as a 41.71, and probably this is what I'm planning for tomorrow, for between 41.71 to 41.90. This is the upside for ES. Likely scenario 41.14 to 41, and then probably if that breaches about 40.69. This is what I'm looking at for tomorrow to the upside and to the downside. Nothing beyond this. And if it comes down to this number here, 4069, 4070, then likely scenario is mean reversion, probably sometime either on the PPI day or probably next week sometime. This is, but whatever happens, I'm not looking, if the market comes down, let's say even if it comes down 5% from where we are, I will be a net buyer of this market because I don't see any, I don't see what do you call that? Any concern which might have an effect or have a profound effect on the growth of U.S. market. So that's why I'm still looking for an upside. Yeah. Uh, Anything else? I think this is what we want to look at. Right. So this is crossing to the upside. And how much of an upside this will have, I don't know. The mean reversion was done yesterday, so likely scenario is that it will test the mean again. And if it does test this mean today, then likely scenario is that it will end up somewhere about here, either today or maybe in the overnight session. Why? Because of that CPI expectation. And if the CPI comes in hotter than expected, likely scenario it will go hit this number 103.50 area. And if the CPI comes in lighter than expected, probably we'll see the lows happening here at about 101.40 area. And yeah, and the market will react to this number. And if the CPI comes in hotter than expected, and then this will cross to the upside, likely scenario is that it'll hit this number, and if it clears this number, we will end up somewhere about here, 103.86 for the DXY. Let's see this number here. Yeah, this is also crossing to the upside. So let's see how it plays out. One other thing we want to see is this guy, not Q's, Nasdaq. So where's the daily? Yeah, so this is the daily. Yesterday, this is what happened, and it's still pinned below its one standard deviation, and we want to see it come back down. We want to see it, but test the 5, test the 8, probably come back down to this number again, 1119. Probably if Apple and Microsoft starts to move lower than 1186, this is where I'm sitting with Nasdaq. I think this should get tested at some point in time. Yeah, I think this is a the mean reversion last time it was all the way here when it took this big move after clearing the mean. Mean reversion is in cards, but I don't know when it's going to happen. But mean reversion is in cards for Nasdaq. Keep an eye on this and take a look at this chart as well. Use this one. So 5 bounced, right? I'm thinking the 5 needs to happen again. And if 5 breaches, likely scenario is the 8. This is what I'm betting on, especially given the MACD on the Apple and Microsoft, the way they are behaving. Might not we don't know because this week is mostly news related, so we don't know how it's going to react, and if it's going to react to the downside, likely scenario is this and this. And if that breaches, very likely we are looking at a push all the way down here into this number. That's how I'm looking at. Cool thing. Anybody, anything else? Skill has earnings today. Expected moves 11%. Nice. Still, I don't know how to play that. Which one? Skill? I don't know either. Skill. Do I know anything about this thing? I have no idea. Skills of smaller ticket item. CE collapse. What is CE? All right, let's move into live trading. Let's talk there.